Hello there, my name is Anthony Barocas with IEBA Communications, and here I am going to do a live switch talking about my kit, my setup, and my methodology for NAB. And realistically, this can be done for any type of situation where you need to be very mobile. Everything needs to move, everything needs to be on a tripod, everything needs to go from place to place, but you still want to do like just a little multicam live switching action, and you don't want to actually physically carry it all. So one of the key things that I discovered from doing the videos that I did last year, and for those who haven't seen them, I go to NAB and I do in-booth interviews with someone, and there's a camera facing both of us, and then there's a camera facing the guest, and we switch between these these two different angles and add titles and everything live on the fly. So we're doing a live switch television show. Hello there, my name is Anthony Barocas with Streaming Media here on the show floor at NAB 2018. There's a lot of Hello there, my name is Anthony Barocas, and I am here at NAB 2019 with Ryan from Rode. And I think there's a lot of buzz about the new microphone that you came out, this teeny little thing. I mean, a lot of people, tell me, what is Whipster? It's not really a common name yet.
So Whipster, actually the whip in Whipster stands for work in progress.
Okay.
So that's where it came from. So work in progress, you know, when we're creating things, we're always...
So this is the Video Go. This is the latest live streaming encoder that we initially released back in December. But today here at NAB, we announced the Video Go HDMI. So it's identical to the original Video Go.
And that is pretty much what it looks like. We did these over and over and over. This past NAB 2019, I did 12 of them. And realistically, trying to set up a whole big piece of kit and tear it all down and set it all up and tear it all down, and different places, Central Hall, South Upper, South Lower, many different places, would be really hard if you didn't find a way to pack it all up nicely. Key factors to consider is the fact that Wi-Fi does not work on the convention floor. As much as people say, you know, they've got a very reliable solution, I had a Wi-Fi hub. This is not the Wi-Fi hub. I had a Wi-Fi hub on top of my iPad here in the hot shoe, and then I had the other device on an arm like 2 feet away, and I could not get a reliable connection between the two devices. So that pretty much says that there is too much RF. It's not Wi-Fi, there's too much RF. There are companies sending out video streams on the unlicensed 2.4 gig and 5 gig spectrum, and they send big swaths of data. You know, they take a video signal, chop it all up, and send on multiple frequencies at the same time. They send this video stream out, and that is essentially really loud, powerful noise on the unlicensed spectrum. I just lost my phone here. Gotta wake it up because I wanted to show how my setup was. I'm gonna talk to you while I do this. I'm going to show how my setup was at NAB and start broadcast, because I think it could be useful to people who do need to do setup, whether it be a conference, whether it be doing something in a local area. That's, even if it's not a conference, it could be a public event and a carnival or something like that, and you want to go around and get interviews. This type of information could be useful. So to see what I looked like, this is what I looked like, and I'm going to switch this back to dissolve like I always like it. And what you can see here is on my back I'm carrying the iPad and everything, and down here is the tripod. On the tripod I had a little arm, the one on the right, that held the iPad on a quick release, and then the arm on the left extended 24 inches, and that enabled me to hold a second phone out off to the side. Now, the key challenge in doing this was that Because I wanted to improve the quality. Last year in 2018, I did it so that I just recorded the live stream and I could use the camera in the iPad. This year I wanted to use director mode, so I get full 1080, much higher bit rate, much higher quality, and that meant I could not use the camera in the iPad. It just turns itself off, so the iPad is focused on doing other things. So I had to have a second device up top. So last year what I ended up doing was I ended up running Ethernet between the iPad and the phone because there was only two devices, and that worked out great. Excuse me. This year, because I couldn't use the camera in the iPad, I had to have the iPad to mix the show, an iPhone, and another iPhone. I don't have enough hands. But it's 3 devices. And what that means is you can't go from point to point, which the Apple Ethernet adapters will let you do. They'll let you plug in on the iPad and plug in on the phone and just run one Ethernet cable right between them, and they'll automatically bridge and find each other and everything will work. That doesn't work if you have 3 devices. You need something in the middle. And that was the key thing. There's lots of solutions for power over Ethernet. Apple's coming out with Power Plus with Belkin, power over Ethernet. There are plenty of cheap third-party adapters that give you Ethernet and USB. I tested these. Not reliable. Always test. This is what I always recommend to people. Test, test, test. Test it again. Don't test it like on the day of the event, like right before the event. Don't use an event to test something. Test it like this type of situation where I'm in my little workshop here and I'm doing things. I would run a test during this type of broadcast and find out what works and what doesn't work. And I tested these guys and they did not work reliably for me, in that I was supplying power to the power port and Ethernet to these don't do power over Ethernet. I was supplying power to this device from externally and Ethernet, and the power coming in did not also power the phone. So the phone, over the course of an hour or 2, died. This didn't work for me. There are other adapters like this Red Park. I have several of these here. The Red Park adapters are actually work really well. They work as power over Ethernet. So there's a box, Ethernet comes in with power on the wire, and then you get a jumper to go from the Red Park device into your phone. And that's all well and good, and it costs about the same as what the Apple adapter costs. So if push comes to shove, I'll choose the Apple adapter only because if it doesn't work, then I can complain to Apple. Whereas if it's a third-party adapter, then the problem is that I can't complain to Apple because it's not their problem. It's not their device. And this device just keeps going to sleep on me because it's not streaming. Only when it's streaming does it stay awake. So there are other things, like I have this device here. This has 4 power over Ethernets, and this will take 12 volts in, so I can put a big IDX battery, put it on a 12-volt plate, clink, and I could run this thing and power 4 cameras and have all that communication. And there's 8s and more with this type of solution that I have as well. I mean, I'm doing a lot of research, testing a lot of things so that I have the most flexibility in terms of having solutions to meet the needs of the projects that I am encountering. I'm always trying to push forward and find those solutions before I desperately need them, because I've got to test them. So let me go back to this again. I'm streaming from my phone, so back to here. Oh, rotate. Okay, so very good. Give me a second here and I'll rotate it all the way around. There we go. And go back to here. So this kit, this is a Manfrotto tripod, and the main camera would go up here. Now I can't, let's see. Let's close this and go to the next one. So here we are on the NAB show floor, and you can see here's my iPhone in a holder with the light on top of it. We are right outside Wooden Camera, Teradek, and Small HD. Down here on that little arm, you can see the iPad that we're using to control it. There's the wireless mic, And then out on the arm here is the other iPad. And what you don't see in this setup is a bunch of dongles. Now, everybody knows that Apple loves their dongles. Apple, you have to use an Apple Lightning to USB 3, and then a USB to Ethernet, and then you got to power the USB adapter so that the Ethernet can get power, and it's just all this wonky thing. And they have the power over Ethernet adapter coming, so it just comes down to one adapter, and that'll be great. But it's not here yet, so I had to find a solution. And what I did was I had down here in this bag, I had all of my audio, and over here you can see the Saramonic was going into the iRig, and the iRig went into the iPad. So that's literally my whole kit. This was like the 4th version of my kit, because like I says, you build it, test it, find out what's not working right, see what you can do better, try it again. The iRig was my primary, and then I had a little bit of echo issues, which seems to be a common thing with it. You just got to turn your volume down. And so I came up with another version, and I used the USB adapter and added a USB hub into the whole big thing that I was working on. And it just added more complexity, but I was assured of cleaner audio. And then the iRig, which worked, was my backup. So I had multiple levels of backup for multiple things. I had the iPhone I was shooting with, which is actually the one I'm talking to now. And then I had the iPhone that was off to the side, which is this one up here. And then I brought a complete third device, my third SE, which I'm actually using to, move the pictures around with. And I loaded all of the iPad content onto the SE. So if the iPad on the floor of NAB decided to crash or whatever, I could literally whip out the iPhone SE and run the show again. The key thing is the networking, and that's what we're going to get to today. I have an overhead camera here, and I have my kit down here. Excuse the clutter, it's right after NAB, and I haven't exactly decluttered everything, but this is the iPad we used to run the show. It connected right down here. Like I said, that iPad was connected on a little magic arm right there, which is, let's go back to here, which is this one right here. So this connected on the leg, and then we get a little adapt so I can get the right angle and everything. And then I have a little quick release. So this is a great little solution mostly. The idea is this stays on the iPad and this stays on the tripod, and then I could put it in there, lock it in, and now it won't twist, it won't come out, because it's basically, like if you've ever used a cordless drill. This is the hex with a little ball thing in there, and it's not going to come out. The problem is it's still 1/4 here and 1/4 on the bottom, so it still eventually twists, even though you've got this part which doesn't twist. The thing is, you need that hexagon here, 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 and in the middle. You need 4 hexagons, or just eliminate one of these joints and make it a hexagon into the tip of this arm. But that doesn't exist. Plus the weight of the iPad pushing down on this sometimes would open because you're going counterclockwise. So I have a new solution. I purchased it at NAB. It is, it clamps on, and then it has a rosette. And then there's a little arm and another rosette. And then it goes into the bottom of the iPad. And that way I have this part, but this and all these different pieces are all rosettes, so they don't twist. So that's coming eventually. So back to the kit. So what I had here was, as you can see right here, this is the arm extended with a little phone holder. And I put red and yellow on there so that people wouldn't walk into it, because NAB is notorious for people walking into things because they're not looking where they're walking. There's so much to look at up and down the aisles. So what I have is this. This is the Manfrotto. I can't see it because things on there. 196 AB2. So this thing is actually pretty cool. These ends don't move. Well, they do move, but they don't come out. The middle part, it can extend to 24 inches, and it can collapse down to just a couple inches. There are 3 hinges, so each part can twist. I can twist here. I can twist here, and also spin around the pole, but it won't come off the pole. It does not come off. And then the last little feature of this device is that there is a, trying to line it up with the camera, 3/8 on one end and a 1/4-20 on the other end. So I threaded this into the Manfrotto tripod right, let's go back to the picture, right down here at the neck. There is a hole in the neck of the tripod that has a 3/8 inch hole. So I put a 3/8 inch, just basically a bolt between this and the tripod, and that's how this literally mounted directly to the tripod. I didn't have to use a clamp. I have clamps, but being able to do it directly, much better. I didn't have the added weight of a clamp to carry around. And then I could extend this out as far as I needed it, as high as I needed it, at any particular angle I needed it. And then at the end of it, I had the 1/4 inch, which went into this little holder here. And I apologize, it's all dark behind, so let me move some of this stuff out of the way. So this little holder here was what I went into here, and this held the camera. I did this because I did not want to have to constantly loosen all of these, knuckles here. I could tighten this all down, and then this is a friction ball, so I could get that last little bit of adjustment for the camera depending on where the guest is, how tall they are, up, down, left, right. I get that last little bit of adjustment right here, and it's just friction. So this was key in making sure that, well, it gave me a 6 more inches in the length of the arm. Plus, once I get everything kind of lined up and then the person settles and they're now a foot further over to the side, that let me, so if somebody's coming over here, we could quickly just adjust this thing and then move them back into position. So this adjustment let me do that last little tweak, and we had to use this. You'll see in the interview with Adamos, we lined up in one position, and then he started talking, and he was way off, and he was referring to things that were off the camera. So in the middle of it, we managed to tweak it, and then all of a sudden he was kind of over here, and he was referring to things, and you could see what he was referring to because we had adjusted the camera actually during the entire process, during the interview. So that was actually very cool. And that is the arm. Now, for the light, we had a photo deox. I have it right here. Let's go back to this. I had this photo deox curved light, and it's the factor light, and it uses lithium-ion batteries like these. And I brought 3, and before I left, I actually tested each one of them. I got these little charts here that, the light for this one, 730 to 1230, the light 750 to 130. I'm testing the light on these different batteries, and on the back of the battery, 430 to 630, so that's a 2-hour battery, 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. That's a 4-hour battery, depending upon their age, from 10:15 to 12, and then from 3:15 on. So I had all these batteries, and I ended up never draining one of them, and then I would just charge it up at night. So I had way too much battery power for the light, but that's fine. I'd rather have more than not enough. But this light worked out very well in that it is curved. So it's kind of hard to show here, and I actually am using the light. So let me cut back to me. And this is the light. So it's kind of hard. There you go. You can see that the actual light itself curves 90 degrees, so that if it's pointing this way, I'm getting light and the other person's getting light. You know, it goes all the way around. And that was why I chose this light, because I wanted to illuminate two people who were going to be in front of the camera, very close to each other, and it was going to be this wide angle lens. So I had to like really, a normal square light with a bunch of diffusion in the front is not the same as a light that literally is firing this way and this way and this way. It's lighting everything in front of you, and that worked out beautifully. So kudos to the photodiox light on top of the camera, and that's just a phone right there on top of the tripod, and then down there is the control. So getting down to the wireless mics, like I said, I used the Ceramonics, and this is the kit. And what this let me do is this let me have two microphones running through one output, and the output of the receiver can either be stereo, like split left and right on this jack, or you could go into the menu and make it mono. And because I was going mono into the iPad anyway, I just mixed this down to mono, and you can tell in this device, in the receiver, how loud each microphone is, but we just kind of like left that as it was, because we're both talking over the crowd noise, we're both talking kind of loud, and for the most part it all worked out fine. I didn't have anything that was really, really low and really, you know, really low versus really loud. I still brought it into post, and I still evened out the levels even a little bit more, and that way the deliverable that I have is as good as I can make it. So that is the audio kit. When you listen to the interviews being done on the NAB show floor, we're using UHF microphones, and we did not have a problem with interference on the NAB show floor, even though there's likely a lot of other people all using UHF. As long as nobody's on your exact frequency with another FM type transmission, you're fine. They could be down here, they could be over here, it doesn't matter. It's not like trying to on the unlicensed frequencies. The next thing I wanted to talk about was here. Actually, I could show you here. This shows you how the camera was set up, and you can see the single black cable coming out. Here's the photodiox light. It's not on there. Coming down to the iPad. There's the iRig. Here, oh no, it's off the angle there. And that is the pack. And people have asked me how I managed to do multiple devices through this pack, and that's what I wanted to show you now, is this pack, because at the end of the day, this is what you saw. This one pack was powering and enabling all these devices to communicate, and you don't see a bunch of excess dongles or cables or anything. And this is expandable. Here you can see on the bottom of the iPad is that thing sticking out, because what I'm doing here is I'm actually using director mode to copy the cameras over and compile, and that's literally like the whole kit right there, aside from camera support and things like that. So it just worked out very well. Now again, this was not my first solution. It was sort of probably the third iteration of what I wanted to do. I tried one version, I tried a second version, I had built it, tested it, and then I improved on it with the third version. The third version, which I'm going to show you, is this kit. Now the pouch comes from a microphone kit, I believe. You can put it in anything you want, but this one I did specifically so that I could hang it off of the tripod. And that is one of the, that was actually one of the key features of this, is that it would just hang there. So it's adding weight to the tripod, stability a little bit, and it's sort of it's kind of discreet there. It's not on the floor, it's not mounted on the back of stuff, making things extra heavy. It's its own thing, just hanging there on the tripod. I just hung it off of, there's lots of little areas to hang it there. And that worked out very well for me, just hanging it. And then of course I put a little name tag on there just in case I left it somewhere accidentally. In this case, you can see I've got audio in and 3 outputs. Now, technically, these are all the same. These are all lightning connectors. These are all going into everything that's inside. However, one of them has the audio adapter. That's this one, and the yellow one has to go to the iPad, so that the audio going into the audio adapter is passed through to the device with the yellow tape. That's this one. And so the audio, this is the audio in to the audio adapter. And I don't know if you can, oh, it's down here. I'm trying to drag it up top, and it doesn't work that way. No, it's not there. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this up now. Let's open it up this way. It's a little bit less cluttered this way. All right. So it looks like a mess, and that's merely because I'm trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Here you see let's come over here and we'll zoom in a little bit. Here you see I have an anchor, USB 3 hub. This is the audio adapter, and this is the audio coming in to the USB hub, as well as the USB hub going to the Ethernet adapter. And this is the one that goes to the iPad. So this all connects right here, and this is the one that goes to the iPad. So if you follow this up, it comes up here, and that's the one with the yellow cable right there. Each USB adapter has to be powered. So where does the power come from? The power comes from a big battery. So in here is this big battery that has 4 2.1 amp outputs. A lot of batteries I see is like 1 2.1. So, oh, we'll charge a phone really fast. Yeah, they'll charge on 1 high amp output, and the rest are 1 amp, and then maybe nothing, or 1 1 1 1. That doesn't work. I needed 2, 4, 6, 8. So this is probably 9 amps of output here, and I'm using all 4. 3 of them for the iPad, for the iOS USB adapters, and this last one, actually at this point I will move this case out of the way. This last one goes to my USB, or my Ethernet switch. So I'm not going to be able to like make it all really, really pretty, but you can see the power is over here. Move that out of the way. And then this is my Ethernet switch. The power comes in over USB. So finding an Ethernet switch that accepts USB 5-volt power was the key. Now, like I said, I have a switch that will take 12-volt power, and that was an option. I literally have a completely other setup. This is my backup power pack, and it was all 12-volt based. So if this battery went down, if the hub went down, if the adapters stopped working, I could adapt and keep going, so that I could rip this open, and then I had my V-lock plate, I had a 4 output, high amp output. I was ready to go with backup power should the main battery over here stop working. The key is that this battery was supplying power to all 3 of the USB adapters and to the switch. The switch is a 5-port switch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus power. So when I turn this on, ba-dum, you can see I've got power. Well, you can't really see. If I turned off the room light, you'd be able to see. If I turn down the ISO a little bit, you can see that this is lit up now. And if I turn this off, 1, 2, 3. So that was actually very handy too. Having a battery that didn't just turn itself on and off. I could turn it on and off. So that when I was ready to start filming, I turn it on, and now it's ready to go. And it will power all of these USB adapters. Ethernet will talk to the switch. They'll all find each other. And then I just connect all of the ends to my iPhones, and I'm ready to go. Like I says, this is 1, 2, 3. I actually have 4 and 5 on this. So I could connect 2 more phones, 2 more camera angles, be completely wired. Of course, I would need the Ethernet adapter and the USB adapter, and that way I could have 5 devices, iPad to control, and 1, 2, 3, 4 cameras all powered up. Obviously, I don't have any more power coming out of this battery here, so I would then need an additional battery to supply power to the other Apple USB adapters here, but that's not an impossible task at all. Like I says, you know, you can have 1 of these, you can have 3 of these. I just happen to manage to have one that has 4 high amp outputs, because these Apple adapters will not work properly with a 1 amp or a 1.5 amp. You need a 2.1 amp power supply to this adapter for this thing to work properly. I've tried it with smaller batteries, and it'll just tell me I can't run the Ethernet adapter. And then the last thing that dressed everything up was these black cables. So black is, I don't know, it's an industry standard. These things work very well. Let's zoom back out a little bit. These black cables are 3-foot, 1 meter cables, not the audio cable. These 3 are worked out very well. When looking for extension cables, you're looking for an 8-pin cable. I'll put a link in the description. And you specifically want to find one that will pass power and data. Not all the cables that you'll find will pass both power and data. Some of them are meant just for charging, or just for extending, you know, so that, you know, if you're gaming, I don't need data. I'm just gaming, you know, so like I have Wi-Fi going or something like that, but I don't want to have the battery in my hand. This way I can have this long extension cord. And as part of all of this that I had going on, turn this off. There we go. As part of everything that I had going on here, I also had a complete backup for a lot of other things. And I'll just quickly run through that, because I think it's important to just, you know, understand that, you know, I had audio, and then I also had my iRig 2 for doing audio. And then I had a backup Apple adapter in case one of the cables got crimped and messed up. I had a backup micro USB, which would power the switch. I had another audio interface that could split between headphones and audio in. I had a backup Ethernet cable, these fold flat Ethernet cables that I got. And then I had oh, that's for my phone, that's for something else, but it's also in there. I had the ability to charge things up later. So this is a big 4 output, I don't even know how many watts, but 40 watts. So 40 watts of output, so that will charge multiple things at once. I had an extra iPhone holder that folds up nice and flat. I had an extra ball head. I had an extra extension cable in case one of those got crimped or damaged in some way. I had an extra one of those. And I had extra batteries for things. I had an extra headphone adapter in case that one got lost. You know, just gotta go for all the contingencies. This was an extra hex key for the kit that I had put together around the one iPhone that held the light on top, and then I had a shotgun mic that uses these batteries, and I'll put those back in the drawer here. And that way, if my wireless went totally to town, I actually had my Sennheiser microphone, which is what takes the little battery back here. I had this as a backup. Or if I needed to hand hold it and go back and forth. I tested it. It works with these wireless mics. I could just plug this in there, and I could manually go between, hello, this is me, hello, this is you, me, then you, and I could direct the conversation. So if the lavaliers either stopped working, or even if they didn't work as well as I hoped they did, and the show floor was extremely noisy, and I needed something to really knock down to reduce ambient noise, I would switch to the shotgun mic so that I could then, I'm talking, and then when I hold the mic out to the other person, then they know they can talk, and it really isolates the sound, and it controls the conversation. And you know, so it's not just a technical backup, it's a situational backup, so that if the situation is such that the audio is just so loud that, you know, wearing lavalier microphones doesn't work, what's the backup? You know, if anybody who does sports knows, they wear the headsets with the boom microphone right here in front of the person's mouth. Why? Because there's just so much noise. You have to like get that microphone as close as you can to the person's mouth. And then some people even like tape the back of it to try and reduce all sort of sound, because it can get incredibly noisy inside of an auditorium. So knowing the environment, knowing what your tools can do, because you've tested them, knowing what options you have and what you can change out. What is your contingencies? What is your backup? What is your backup to that? Or what if you were to choose something different, how would you do things differently? And, you know, we actually did use this for one or two of the interviews, and then we went to the digital only because I forgot about the yellow on the switch. You know, best laid plans of mice and men. So I plugged this one into the iPad, and all the devices saw each other, but I couldn't get any of the digital audio. Why not? And then the next time I plugged them in, I was like, oh yeah, yellow. That's why this one's marked, because this is the special one. And then the audio worked. So that is a not so quick look at what my setup was, or at least much of my setup, not all of my setup, but a good portion of what my setup was, what my plan was, my contingencies, methodology for doing mobile, live, multicam, switched content with iPhones. Technically, it doesn't have to be iPhones. If you have Android phones that support MHL, you could use this. You could do the same thing with NDI and Android phones, and connect them to OBS Studio and have 4 or more, depending upon if you run a switch into a switch into a switch. You know, you can have lots of phones all communicating back to a multicam switcher, all of everything on a wire, so that everything is immune to RF problems. And that was the key with this year's setup, all this wiring, versus last year's setup, where I tried to do it wirelessly, and that did not work on the NAB show floor. So like I said, there's lots of different solutions out there. There's Red Park, there's supposed third party. Some people have gotten this to work. Didn't work for me. Why? Test it, test it, test it. And then there's also hardware devices with power over Ethernet. So this device, and then Apple's new power over Ethernet adapter, partnership with Belkin. That would be a great solution too, because then 12 volt, and then kind of simplifies the whole thing, because this is the whole kit. This is it, and a battery. And then that way this goes out, and then You just have the one dongle on the back of the phone and you're done. There's lots of different ways to solve these problems. I'm not saying this is the kit that everybody needs to have. I know some people are very fond of like creating something that works for them and saying everybody needs, this is the kit everybody needs. No, this is what worked for me for this event, for the problems I knew I would encounter at this event. And it's about experience, having done it before, knowledge of what I was going to expect and problems that I could anticipate, figuring out solutions and figuring out backups to those solutions in case the primary solution did not work. A lot of this comes with experience and doing it. So the more people do this thing, the more their kit will grow, the more options and backup pieces and little doodads and whatnots they'll have, so that when they come up to a problem, they're like, "Ooh, I have something that will solve this. I have, ta-da! I have this thing. This is this little widget." Or, you know, "Oh no, you know, the thing broke. Okay, look, now I've got a little backup holder that'll hold my phone, and it folds up to nothing." You know, so having these little pieces, you gather them. They don't always solve every problem, but there's times when that one piece really does a great job solving this particular problem. And I hope, looking at the kit that I have put together, this is now just a mess down here, looking at my mess now that NAB is over, I hope that maybe this has helped people realize the amount of thinking that goes into it, the amount of preparation that goes into it. Yes, you can go buy this, that, and the other. It might work perfectly for you. It might not work perfectly for you. It's about understanding things. It's about testing things. It's about planning and, you know, making sure that you have the right pieces in place to do what you need to do so that when you get to that situation, you are ready. My name is Anthony Barocas with AIBA Communications. Thanks for watching.